Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emily Sophia, and I'm going to be walking you guys through the latest X-Men hit, X-Men Days of Future Past. So, I will say that there will be spoilers later on in this review, but as for the beginning, I'm going to kind of focus more on a non-spoilery review, especially for those of you who have not yet seen the film. I did see kind of a preview Thursday night showing just the other day, and so it's understandable that a lot of people haven't even seen this movie at the time that I'll be uploading this review. However, if you have, just stick around for the whole vlog and I will discuss everything and the plot and characters and development, all of that jazz in depth. But as for now, I will give you a spoiler-free synopsis of my reactions to the film. And you can also check out too, if you're looking for something spoiler-free, the other day I did a pre-review of Days of Future Past where I kind of, walk you guys through my backstory as far as my love of the X-Men goes and why I fell head over heels for them in the first place. And then also kind of my reasons for being ridiculously excited about the film. So there is a link to that in the description as well as an annotation here, so you can check that too. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. I try to keep it fun and fresh for you guys. And also, when it does come to the point where I will be talking about spoilery things, if there are any critical scenes or developments or character interactions that I fail to address in my vlog, then treat the comment section like an extension of this video experience and contribute to the things that I have brought to the table by leaving your own thoughts, and I'll try and respond as well. So, and let's keep it nice in the comments, okay? Keep it groovy. It'll be fun. But at any rate, so most of you guys know that I have pretty much been my entire life led up to last night's event. And I have been stoked beyond belief for this film, especially since the incredible smash hit First Class. We got to have an amazing fusion in this new film, Days of Future Past, of the old cast and the new cast. And so we have future and past variations of all of our favorite characters. So as Professor Charles Xavier, we have, of course, in the old, James McAvoy. And in the, well, actually, technically, that was originally fronted by Patrick Stewart. And so kind of the newer cast, which is the old era, is you've got James McAvoy, and then we have Magneto or Eric as both Michael Fassbender and Ian McKellen, and just the interactions between these cast members too. If you watch any of the interviews that they do, there is so much love, and that is something that makes me love the movie all the more, is just knowing that there is a huge sense of camaraderie among the people that are making this movie. That is to me something that is very much valuable. So there's that. We get to the old and the new, and it is just A-list performances from start to finish. Literally, this movie satisfied on every possible level, and then some. It is in fact a miracle that I am still alive today, because, I held my own through the movie. I was laughing with the rest. I was just absolutely reeling from the excitement and the chaos that somehow managed to make so much sense. And then it was in the last 5 minutes that I just started like boo-hoo bawling because, well, I can't tell you why. But basically, the filmmakers, the producers of the cinematic X-Men masterpiece, they did something that I did not think that they would do. Effectively making this film an astonishing sequel to both First Class and X-Men 3: The Last Stand, the film of which we do not speak, but which we must speak of when discussing the things that this movie gets right. And that's just the thing, is Days of Future Past knocks it out on almost every possible level. I mean, we're dealing with time travel. Inevitably, that stuff is complex as all get out. And if you're not readily invested in the characters themselves and their powers and their personalities and the conflicts and just all of the drama and tension, if you're not invested in the characters, it's gonna be a little bit tougher to sink your teeth into the really confusing time and space madness that's going on. That is something that can make the film a little bit more complicated, but at the same time they just do such an excellent job of grounding this really confusing concept in these very organic and real struggles between characters and the ideological differences that revolve around, you know, the human perceived mutant threat, how the mutants and the humans interact together. Is there a world in which they can coexist, you know? And so these huge sweeping themes that are grounded deeply in character development as the characters from the future try to inform the understandings of their past selves, namely through Wolverine, who is the one who travels back to 1973, and then and the rest of the characters who have survived in this crazy dystopian future of the super slim, gorgeous yet terrifying Sentinels of the future. Yeah, so it was visually fantastic. I saw it in 2D, but I've heard that the 3D is really crisp and effective for those of you who like that kind of experience. The soundtrack itself was amazing. We have, oh my gosh, is it James Ottman or John Ottman? I always mess up his name, but he fronted, you know, the original X-Men theme, and so having that soundtrack with him as the master of the ship was fantastic. And there's also a lot of fun with the ironic use of music as well. I mean, you're dipping back into the 70s, so they use a lot of these old 70s hits and kind of intertwine them with what's happening in a way that produces a lot of irony and humor. I mean, it's right up there with Avengers status. Like, the types of things that made us love the Avengers movie so much, there are so many of those elements present in Days of Future Past. But it's not as if the filmmakers had to steal the magic from the Avengers. They just contributed to the magical world that is Marvel. That's what I feel. Now, I have to address as well the criticism towards this movie. I mean, it's been certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It is getting all the praise. But when it comes to these types of movies, there are people that go into it or try to come out of it and subvert the hype and all of the excitement and joy that the fan community is experiencing. And that is something that I do not appreciate if you're not doing it in an informed and respectful way. GTFO, promptly, or I will take care of that for you. Anyways, it seems to me that two of the major groups that might take issue with this film are, number one, people who want the film to be, or to represent an exact replica of the Days of Future Past canonical storyline from the comics, or number two, people who have absolutely no knowledge of either the comics or just the X-Men universe itself. I read some reviews prior to making this review of my own simply because I like to be able to address what other people are thinking and feeling, because I know that oftentimes I will be absolutely ridiculously in love with something, and then there are other people that are trying to poke holes in my hot air balloon of joy that is ascending into the heavens. So I like to just look at that stuff and kind of see, you know, what my personal feelings are up against in the world of criticism. But it seems like a lot of people were kind of missing the purpose of what the film was. And when I say a lot, I just mean that Google kept prioritizing these really negative reviews whenever I would look up things about Days of Future Past, when in fact I've heard nothing but amazing people from, you know, from my followers on here and Twitter and people who gotten to see the movie early, you know. So basically the thing that will help you to understand, or well, to appreciate this film the most, is if you have some previous familiarity with the X-Men world, particularly the cinematic one. Because let's face it, the movie makers throughout the past decade and a half have been building their own cinematic universe that is standing on its own legs at this point. And I think it's important and great that these films draw from the canonical comic world, but they can't exactly lift those stories right off the pages and just present them as is, being that they've already developed a story that has its own differences, and anything that they take from the comic storylines they're going to have to integrate into their pre-existing world. They kind of have their own canon now, and I think that it's wonderful when they draw from the original material because it is just such a fantastic resource, and I love the comics myself. But you know, people who had no idea about the comics are complaining about how confusing the movie seemed, or you know, people saying that it doesn't honor the source material. But honestly, it can't draw directly from it without introducing some change. That's just kind of the fact of the matter. And so I would say, in order to make sure that you have an appreciation for the X-Men prior to seeing this film, watch the original trilogy, you know, watch X-Men 1, X2, X-Men United, X3, The Last Stand, and that is a painful experience, but one that is necessary to go through in the context of this film. And then I would also say to at least also see First Class, but maybe also the Wolverine 2, which has a nice kind of lead in to Days of Future Past as well. Just don't, you know, give yourself the best possible experience in seeing this movie. And in fact, if you're kind of an old school gamer and you still have like a GameCube or a Wii or anything like that, the X-Men Legends video games are another amazing way to fall in love with the X-Men. That's kind of where I got started and where I was fully immersed. So, you know, I would check out X-Men Legends, the first one, and then there's X-Men Legends 2, Rise of Apocalypse, which will actually prepare you for the 2016 X-Men sequel, X-Men Apocalypse. So, there's that. Anyways, it's just such a good movie, and don't just sit and listen to me talk about it. Go see it, go experience it, devour it, let it devour you, and just love it because it is great and fun and crazy. And while there's just, it opens up so many possibilities for the universe, it leaves us with so many great cliffhanger questions, and also brings so many things just full circle, and it leaves it at the best possible point. Really great themes, just as far as like the significance of the film, what it's trying to say. Great action sequences, really funny, sharp dialogue, fun characters, and a good balance considering how many characters they are trying to integrate. Now, there are some who didn't appear nearly as much as people wanted, but I think it's important to consider the reasons why certain characters only appeared for as long as they did. The X-Men world is absolutely huge, and it is brimming with so many phenomenal characters, and I don't doubt that they're going to be adding more into the future, okay? So that's really all that I can say that is spoiler free at this point. So from here on out, we are in the spoiler zone. So let's dig in. I will try my best to share with you as many of my favorite scenes as I possibly can, and then I will leave the rest to you, the commenters, just to pick up the baton and keep things rolling, because that's what makes it dandy. At any rate, so where to freaking begin, okay? I'll kind of go by a character by character basis, I think, as far as sort of breaking down how I felt about everything, because again, it was slightly over 2 hours of pure thrill and really non-stop action that was really beautifully and brilliantly executed, but there is a lot, and it's really tough to fit into one single video that I'm kind of just doing off the cuff, so I'm gonna try my absolute best. But I think that something that is important to understand about this film is that, you know, when it comes to a hero movie, there is the inclination to look for the cut and dry antagonist. You know, who are the good guys up against and why, you know? And so there is a temptation to say that Peter Dinklage's Bolivar Trask the creator of the Sentinels, is the key villain in this picture. But I think what's interesting about this movie is it doesn't seem to emphasize his villainy as much. You know, it's not your classic hero-villain confrontation. I mean, obviously the guy is not on a good path, and I would not consider taking his view on mutant kind. But, and neither is the villain, or nor is the villain Richard Nixon even. Although, I mean, they're kind of the head of this whole Sentinel operation, and they believe that it is the best way to secure their nation, having seen what the mutants are capable, and then wondering, well, what if they take it out on us, the human race? And then therein lies the othering, and then the processes that flow from that. But see, so you've got Trask, who's kind of a seedy little guy. He's also very smart. And you've got Nixon, who makes a very prompt call at the last desperate minute to okay Trask's very controversial program. But it's really all that they feel that they've got at this point. You know, they're just leaving the Paris peace talks, ending the Vietnam War. And now there is a whole new war that they are finding themselves in the midst of. Something that was hinted at with the historically rooted events of First Class, with what kind of happened in the midst of that Cold War struggle, and what Magneto did, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, but I feel that the central conflict is not as much against good and evil as it is against the things that Xavier and Magneto represent, in terms of how they want mutant kind to relate or not relate to humankind. You know, I loved the character development with the young Professor Xavier, who at the beginning of the 70s plotline that runs in conjunction with the future plotline, at the beginning he is strung out on drugs and is a depressed recluse who's gone on a really nihilistic path ever since a lot of the professors and students had been drafted into the war right after he opened his institute for gifted youngsters, and then he lost Mystique as well. And so he decided that it was no longer worth it for him to invest in the suffering of others or even his own, and he becomes addicted to this medication that alters his DNA, prevents him from having his psychic abilities, but gives him his ability to walk. And what is that ability to walk even worth if he's, you know, just holsting up in his own place of solitude and despair? And then ultimately, his future self, through Wolverine, through Shadowcat, through all the craziness, shows him that he needs to hope again. And that his having hope irrevocably alters the future. His having hope prevents the destruction of the freaking world. There are a lot of things in this universe that are out to get the world, and you've got to eliminate as many as you possibly can. Okay, so he goes on this crazy journey trying to, you know, not only break free from his drug addiction so that he can help mutant kind again, but also to realize that there is hope for mutants to show the humans a better future, and for them to go into that place hand in hand in a spirit not only of diplomacy but of friendship and unity, you know. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, we have Magneto, who doesn't quite go on the same crazy journey that Charles does as far as rediscovering hope. He kind of reaffirms his own distaste for the humans, as is evidenced by everything that he does. I mean, he's a major survivalist, and he even goes so far as to threaten to, well, not just threaten to murder Mystique, but he almost gets away with it. And then his actions actually push the past closer to securing that future that his future self is trying to prevent. And it's just, the dissonance. It can get confusing, but again, it's these emotional struggles, and especially the way that the struggles between Charles and Eric are manifested in terms of their relationship with Mystique, with Raven. And what's interesting about her is, you know, she's kind of at the center of this tug of war between them. You know, Magneto has kind of set her on a darker path. And if anything, I wish that the film would have incorporated a little more, or maybe shown us more of the kind of between period between First Class and Days of Future Past, as far as how Magneto got her started on that darker path. I mean, we kind of see a hint of that at the end of First Class, but I would have loved to see more into that backstory because I love the Magneto and Mystique dynamic. But anyways, so we see that Charles is tortured over his losing her, and then Magneto is a little bit conflicted over the path that he sent her on. So she's kind of acting as this solo assassin figure, and she is going forth to rid the world of all human evil, but in that process, she is going to unintentionally give herself up to the furthering of the Sentinel program, one that will successfully obliterate all of mutant kind, and then also secure that dark path of hers such that there's really no turning back. And so she's not just reduced to a set of influences of either she's going to go with Charles or Eric, you know, despite the fact that the two of them are trying to influence her and to bring her to their side, to their cause. Not just because it's theirs, but because they believe that that's the way that the world's got to go. So it's not just about her choosing one or the other. At the very end, after she drops the gun and effectively undoes all of the crazy deaths that we see in the future that are happening until she makes that decision, she doesn't go with either Eric or Charles. She goes out on her own. And we don't know what exactly that means, and that's going to be a huge source of intrigue and maybe even could lead to a possible solo movie for her. I don't know. Mystique is a really fascinating character, and I enjoy Jennifer Lawrence's very sensitive portrayal of her. So the thing that's good is that it's not just about her picking one side or the other. Even after Charles helps to prevent her from making this future-altering decision by killing Trask, even though he is instrumental in kind of helping her to redeem herself or to save herself from going over the edge, she doesn't necessarily choose to be with him or to choose his influence and his roof to remain under. She goes forth from there, and that could mean any and everything. And as we see at the very end of the movie, she is actually disguised as William Stryker, the man who's going to who we assume is to put Wolverine through the Weapon X program. She gets Wolverine out from the bottom of the ocean in the form of Stryker. And so, does he actually go to Weapon X? That's a huge question that I want to see answered. And it makes me wonder if the Apocalypse movie is going to take place in the future timeline or in the past where we spent a lot of time in Days of Future Past. Are they going to pick up where they left off here? Is this, you know, is the future sequel going to be framed in the future where Charles is telling Wolverine, hey buddy, relax, I know that you're kind of torn between timelines, but here's what's happened? And I don't know. It's really, really exciting stuff. And I love the uncertainty of it, because that was a huge twist for me. We're like, okay, now we know where Wolverine is going, but then the glint of Mystique's yellow eyes, and we're like, wait a goddammit minute. What exactly are we doing here? And that's really exciting, and I love that. I love that we don't yet know. That's gonna be really fun to see. But so it's this crazy struggle between, you know, decimating the evildoers or trying to make peace with them. Sides that are embodied by Charles once he comes back into his own and sacrifices his leg for his mind's powers, or, you know, Magneto in what he does. And there's just so many great character moments and interactions and fight scenes. You know, we think about, so the future cast that we have, of course, Professor Xavier, we have Magneto and Wolverine, and then Shadowcat is able to alter Wolverine's consciousness. He's able to survive the process of traveling back into his consciousness to fix all the business in the 70s. We have Iceman as well. And we've got Storm, we have Colossus, Blink, who, some of my favorite action scenes were ones where she's throwing her portals like crazy, and that was just freaking artistic. I loved that crap, that was wonderful. We had a little bit of Bishop as well, and he was quite a reckoning force. I love his powers. Would have loved to have seen more of it, but I think that the fight scenes were just so incredibly well executed. And as far as the ways that they try to best the Sentinels was really a thrilling ride. It was great and just crazy and beautiful to see. And we also had, I think Sunspot was the fire guy. I was actually confused as to who that was at the time, but despite the fact that we were mostly seated in the past, we got to see a lot of them kicking butt too, while they're kind of trying to hold down the fort where Shadowcat is keeping Wolverine's consciousness in the past. And so it's really breathtaking stuff. And as soon as that last Sentinel horde descends upon them and everything goes nuts, the build of suspense and cutting back and forth between that future and the critical moment in the past that defines that future. There's people in the theater that I was with, they were crying their eyes out. And I was just kind of like, I kind of wanted to laugh because it's like, you guys, she's gonna drop the gun. You know, just trust Hollywood for once. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people were really compelled by that. I knew that the future was gonna be changed. I knew that it was going to, and that things were going to be restored. I didn't know just how beautifully restored they would be as soon as Wolverine wakes up and he walks into that room and we see, you know, we got to see a little bit of Rogue and Iceman and Colossus and Shadowcat. Everyone's back and it's just great and wonderful. And then Wolverine walks into the room and sees the back of Jean Grey, and I started bawling like a baby. I love Jean Grey. I have a deep spiritual connection with her, I suppose. And then, of course, her being back means that Cyclops is also back, means that X-Men 3: The Last Stand never happened. And that was the thing that I wanted more than anything in the world. And we got it. And I just, like, they saved Christmas, okay? Screw you, Brett Ratner. Bryan Singer is back in the game, and there ain't nothing you can do. He just did so good with this movie. And then, of course, looking at the characters that we see in the past as well, and the way that they were played out, it was fun to see Beast. And Beast and Wolverine's initial confrontation, like, yeah, we're gonna be friends, you just don't know yet, you know, after a little punch in the face, and their whole brawl was really exciting to watch unfold. The unstrung Charles, the Quicksilver's rescue of Magneto, all hail Quicksilver. That was just such a great high point in the movie. One of many, and for some I bet it probably was just the apex of the film. But that was just such a great portrayal of Quicksilver. And they also referenced the fact that Magneto is Quicksilver's biological father. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and we didn't really get to see a defined Scarlet Witch in this film. But when Quicksilver and Magneto are in the elevator, where the guy who he duct taped to the wall is, that was just so ridiculously comical. I could not believe it. It was wonderful. But Quicksilver makes that quick little comment to Magneto about how his mom knew a guy who had Magneto's particular skill set. I mean, the question is, like, how would he have, you know, Quicksilver's mother and Magneto, how would they have conceived both Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch? Assuming that the little girl that Quicksilver was holding in his lap during that scene when he and his family were watching the program of Magneto getting ready to take out the US government. You know, I don't know, but that was really great because they could have totally skimmed over that and not said anything. I just don't know that Quicksilver would be as compelled by the idea of saving this future. I mean, he kind of strikes me as being more in the delinquent phase, you know, so of course he was excited at the prospect of getting to break the law and all that jazz, but you know. So that to me is the reason why he didn't stick with the group for the rest of the film, and it kind of would have made it would have given it a much more comedic atmosphere, and there was a lot of really serious things that had to unfold. And so I think that he did great for his role in the film, and that, you know, they didn't overdo it, and that's really good with me. Man, and there's just so many other things to touch on as we explore everything that ensued. I think that Peter Dinklage did a great job as Trask, and his role was, admittedly, it was smaller than expected, but that's because the critical struggle was that between Xavier and Magneto, ultimately, and just the way that they built up that suspense to that final scene was truly breathtaking. I have to also comment on the little scene that they had at the very end of the credits, a hint at the Apocalypse sequel that's coming in 2016. If you guys don't know who Apocalypse is, well, X-Men are pretty much screwed. I'll just put it plain and simple for you. But I would say, again, if you're kind of an old school gamer, you love the GameCube stuff, play X-Men Legends 2 Rise of Apocalypse. You can also read the Apocalypse comic line if you want to. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of prepare for the sequel. I shall do so by not only indulging in the games and comics, but also watching this movie a good like 20 times or so. We'll see, we'll see. I'll just kind of keep it on repeat for the rest of my life because it was so beautiful and brilliant. Other things that I loved Wolverine's waking up in the 70s as embodied by the close-up shot of the lava lamp. You know you're in the 70s when you're in that zone. The scene in just anything with Charles and Magneto was truly electric, and I love the way that they use the chess game as kind of a symbol of their relationship with one another, and how Charles, when we first meet him at the fallen X mansion, and he sits down at his desk and we see the old chess set, you know, probably where they used to play, something that, you know, just kind of these really subtle little references. Again, a complex plot that is really grounded in awesome characters. I love Mystique's fight scenes, and I am definitely inspired all the more to do yoga, witnessing the things that she is capable of. And yeah, I mean, just a great demonstration of all of the characters' unique skills without overdoing it. Wolverine was great and snarky as always. The poor guy always has to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. That just freaking sucks. But I'm really fascinated to see where they go from here. And the thing is, they can go anywhere, and they freaking better, because I will be there. And I hope that you guys will too. So share all of your favorite moments and the things that just got to you the most. And thank you so much for watching this ridiculously long video. I will be back before you know it. I promise you that. Let's have some good chats in the comments. Fill in the blanks, please. I could talk about this movie for days. Okay, so you guys take care, be wonderful and blessed and all that good stuff. And I'll see you at a later time.